Well, hey, friends, welcome to Q on Q. We are glad you are with us this week. Well, if you are listening when this episode first airs, it is the ceremonial end of summer. The kids have gone back to school. My wife and I are starting our respective schools this week as well. The nights are getting cooler, the daylight getting shorter. It seems like summer has kind of been a blip on the radar, but if you've been with us during this summer, we've been following through a series themed on games. I want to give you a quick recap in case you've missed any episodes or just need kind of a refresher. We started with Connect 4, talking about important connections and disconnections in our lives. We continued with Jenga, focusing not only on the foundation we build, but how we put the pieces together. After that was Checkers, all about the moves we make in life. And last time, we took a look at Battleship, discussing what we are aiming for in life. So today, that brings us to part 5. It's our finale of the series, and it makes me kind of take a look back to when I was a kid, because one of my favorite games when I was younger was Scrabble. Have you ever played Scrabble and felt the rush of laying down the perfect word? It's kind of that mix between like, ha, I gotcha, and I got a bunch of points, and whoo, I accomplished something. There's just something deeply satisfying about seeing those points add up and knowing that you've been able to make something out of your letters, especially when you've just been staring at your tiles for what feels like forever. And maybe you weren't sure you were ever going to make up a word. We've all had those frustrating games where all you can play are two-letter words, or when you're stuck holding nothing but vowels or letters that just don't seem to make a connection. But Scrabble is more than just a test of vocabulary. It's a game that shows the real power of words. I think what makes Scrabble so fascinating is that every letter and every placement of every letter matters. A single letter can completely change the outcome of the game. Think about how adding an S can turn word into words. It doesn't just unlock another point or two, but it completely changes the possibilities for the game. In the same way, in life, the words we choose and how we arrange them can open doors. They can shape relationships. They can even define our reputation. Words are small, but they carry a lot of weight. Now, I want you to think about it beyond the game board. You know, we've had life application of all of these games, and in everyday life, words can lift people up or they can cut them down. Words can create clarity or cause confusion. Words can harm, words can heal. We don't always think about it, but the way we speak really shapes how others experience us and how we experience the world. I'm talking about the intentionality, or in some cases, carelessness of our words. Just like Scrabble tiles, our words have value. How we use them determines whether that value grows, what value gets wasted, and how we can build for what's to come. So, in today's episode, we're going to use Scrabble as a guide to talk about why words matter. We're going to look at how they carry power, why strategy and intentionality matter, how they shape identity and really our legacy, and even what it means to know the limits of language. Because at the end of the day, Scrabble might be a game, but in life, words aren't just for scoring points, they're for shaping lives. So let's get rolling. When you sit down for a game of Scrabble, one of the first things you realize is that not all words are equal. Some words are short and simple and easy to figure out, maybe worth just a few points, while others can rack up a huge score with the right letters in the right place. A word like quiz, for example, can outscore a much longer word like teaching simply because of the value attached to the letters. That's a reminder that in life, words carry different levels of weight as well. A single phrase can land more heavily than a long speech, and sometimes the simplest words are the ones that matter the most. I want you to take a minute and think about a moment when somebody has spoken a single word or a short phrase that has stayed with you. Maybe it was as simple as yes when you needed an opportunity, or no when you needed a boundary. Maybe it was a word of encouragement like I believe in you, or a word of comfort like peace. One word or one short phrase can redirect the path of a relationship or shift the atmosphere in a room. Because words don't just communicate, they carry power to influence what comes next. And just as those words carry power, that's why careless words can be so destructive. Just as a poorly placed tile in Scrabble could really block a high scoring opportunity for the rest of the game, a thoughtless word can close doors that might otherwise have stayed open. Maybe it's an insult, maybe it's a harsh comment, or a false statement, or poorly placed sarcasm. It can damage trust and linger far longer than the speaker ever intended. The impact of those words isn't easily erased because once they're out there, they shape how others see us and, to be honest, how we see ourselves. On the flip side of that, well placed words can have the ability to multiply in effect. Take a look at the Scrabble game again. Placing a word across a double or triple word score not only boosts the value of your own letters, but it can connect with other words on the board, raising the score even higher. In life, positive words often work the same way, because a single phrase of encouragement or gratitude can ripple outward. Maybe it inspires somebody else to carry that same positivity into their next interaction. The right word, spoken at the right time, really has exponential impact. This is why many traditions, philosophies, and faiths hold language in such high regard, because words aren't just practical tools, they're vessels of meaning, belief, and direction. Because when spoken with intention, they can give life, restore dignity, and build bridges where none existed before. When spoken without thought, they can bring division, pain, hurt, regret. In both cases, the outcome is rarely small. When we think about the power of words, we have to remember that their value isn't measured only by length or complexity. Instead, it's measured by their effect on the people who hear them. One of the most fascinating aspects of Scrabble is that it's not always about who has the best letters, but who knows how to use them. It's true that high value letters can give you lots of points, and using them in smart ways is important. But a player can hold on to a rack full of high value tiles and still lose if they never learn how to place them wisely. Success comes from being intentional. It comes from thinking ahead, making the most of what's available. It's a reminder that in life, too, it's not only what we have, whether it's our words, our gifts, our opportunities, but how we use them that makes the difference. In conversations, we often default to saying whatever comes to mind first, or whatever's easiest, or whatever we just repeat from habit. That can sometimes work, but often it means we waste the chance to speak with purpose. Just like a Scrabble player who lays down a word without considering the long term board, we might speak in ways that don't build toward connection or growth. Intentional words, on the other hand, are chosen with care. They don't just fill silence, they don't just give an answer to give an answer. They aim toward encouragement, toward clarity, toward truth. I want you to take a minute and listen to the words of Paul from Colossians 4:6. He said this: "Let your conversation be always full of grace, seasoned with salt, so that you may know how to answer everyone." That phrase, seasoned with salt, when you hear that, what do you picture? And I'm not talking about french fries here. It's in fact powerful imagery because salt preserves, salt enhances flavor. Salt makes something more tasty or more satisfying. And I mean, Does salt actually have an expiration date? Our words, when chosen thoughtfully, they should do the same. They should preserve relationships rather than corrode them. They should bring out the best in situations rather than dull them. They should leave others with something worth remembering. In Scrabble, part of being strategic also means knowing when not to play a word. Sometimes you pass your turn or save your tiles for something greater. The same is true in our conversations. Silence can be strategic. Holding back a harsh response, resisting the urge to gossip, choosing not to escalate an argument often accomplishes more than blurting out the first thing that comes to mind. Intentional communication isn't just about what we say, it's also about what we decide not to say. Another important part of Scrabble strategy is seeing the bigger picture of the board. A beginner might focus on only placing their own word, but an experienced player thinks about how each move sets up future opportunities for themselves and for their opponent. Likewise, when we speak, we should be thinking beyond the immediate moment. Are our words paving the way for deeper trust? Are they shaping the kind of relationship we want to have in the future? Because our conversations today set the stage for what tomorrow will look like. Strategy with our words means more than just speaking politely or avoiding harm. It means treating each word as an investment, one that can yield long term growth in our relationships, in our faith, in the lives of those around us. And when we speak with purpose, when our words are seasoned with salt, we are not only playing the current turn well, but we're preparing the board for something greater. So, what about those big letters? Those tiles always fascinated me in the game. You know, J, Q, Z, X. They don't come around often, and there's not many of them, but when they do, they can change the game. Every Scrabble player knows the thrill of putting one down because a well placed Q can swing the score by dozens of points and really can turn the tide of a close match. In the same way, there are words in our lives that carry a weight far beyond the ordinary. These words define us, they mark important moments and shape how we are remembered. Think about the words spoken at significant turning points. Maybe it was a graduation speech. Maybe it was wedding vows. Maybe it was a heartfelt apology or a final farewell. These aren't everyday conversations. They're words that etch themselves into our memories. Long after the moment has passed, those words are what people remember. Just as rare letters in Scrabble become defining plays, these defining words help tell the story of who we are and what we stand for. On a more personal level, repeated words can shape our identity over time. If somebody hears the words, you're capable, or you're loved on a regular basis, it begins to form part of their self image. And on the flip side, repeated negativity, such as you'll never amount to anything or you're a failure, leaves a scar that can last a lifetime. Words aren't just descriptors, they're builders. They construct the framework of how we see ourselves and how others see us. Now, I'm not saying to lie to people. What I am saying is how you frame things, the words you choose in those unique situations, will be remembered. The truth is echoed in Scripture. Look at James 3. The tongue is compared to a rudder guiding a ship or a spark that sets a forest on fire. Why would James make this comparison? To make a point. Words might seem small, but they steer identity and destiny, and they carry the power to set the direction of a person's life, for better or for worse. It's not just what we say in the heat of the moment, but the patterns of speech we cultivate that define the atmosphere around us. And when we recognize this, it challenges us to think about the legacy we're leaving behind. What words will people remember when they think of us? Will it be words of kindness, words of encouragement, words of truth, or will it be criticism and careless remarks and negativity? The legacy of our words isn't written all at once, it's built word by word, conversation by conversation, much like a Scrabble game where the board fills in gradually. I'm somebody who admittedly loves sarcasm. Anybody who knows me personally knows when I'm being sarcastic. But what if I chose to use that sarcasm in the wrong situation? I understand if I'm meeting somebody new to be careful about how I approach my words. What if I approach somebody who's going through something tough and I think I'm being funny, but they take it personally? That can affect not only how they feel, but my connection with them for some time. Ultimately, our words become part of the story we hand down to others. Just as a great Scrabble play can be remembered long after the game's over, the words we speak might echo long after we're gone or long after a relationship has broken. That gives us both a responsibility and an opportunity to use our words in a way that shapes identity with hope and to leave behind a legacy worth carrying forward. If you've ever played Scrabble, you know that there are some people who accept every word and some who want to fact check the validity of every word with a dictionary. They even make a dictionary for Scrabble players. Admittedly, the dictionary is an important part of the game because without it, players could toss down any random string of letters and call it a word. The game only works because there's an agreed upon boundary of what counts and what doesn't. Words have meaning because there are limits, and the same is true in life. Not every thought we have is worth saying, and not every phrase is worth repeating. The boundaries of speech protect the value of words. We sometimes forget that words without boundaries can cause confusion or even chaos. I want you to imagine a Scrabble board where somebody insisted on playing ZZZZ. Now, I know those tiles don't exist, but imagine they played it just because they like how it looks. Or maybe they like sleep and want to be reminded of that. If you played that, the game would break down. In conversation, exaggeration, careless speech, or made up facts do something similar. They undermine trust and they make it harder for people to know what's real. Boundaries remind us words carry responsibility. There's a moral and relational boundary to speech. Paul reminds us of this in Ephesians 4:29. He said this, "Do not let any unwholesome talk come out of your mouths, but only what is helpful for building others up." This verse is kind of a rule book for words, not to restrict joy, but to preserve it. Just as the Scrabble dictionary makes the game fair, this boundary protects relationships and communities and calls us to use our words for encouragement, truth, and blessing rather than for harm. Boundaries in speech also give words really a greater strength. A Scrabble board is exciting precisely because there are limits. Only certain moves are possible. And in the same way, when we choose not to say everything that comes to mind, the words we do speak carry more weight. Silence, restraint, and self control sharpen the impact of the words we actually use. A word of affirmation or correction can land more deeply when it isn't drowned out by a flood of chatter. It's worth noticing, too, that boundaries can free us as much as they restrict us. A Scrabble player who respects the rules can actually get more creative and find new connections within the given framework. When we respect the boundaries of honest, wholesome speech, we open up space for creativity, for humor, for storytelling, for truth, for uplifting talk instead of destructive talk. The limits don't stifle us, they guide us into better play. Boundaries in language remind us that words are not neutral. They're not just sounds or marks on a page, they're tools for shaping reality. The rules of Scrabble protect the game, and the boundaries we set on our words protect relationships. They even protect our own reputation. Living within those limits doesn't shrink the value of our words, it magnifies them. When you think about it, Scrabble isn't just a game of letters on a board. It's a reminder of how much words truly matter. Not just in competition, but in daily life. We've seen words carry power, and we know that using them wisely requires thought and care, that they shape identity and legacy, and that they gain strength within boundaries. Just like Scrabble, our conversations and choices with words add up to something far greater than a single turn. So, reflecting on all of that, and I know it's a lot, our challenge is simple but profound. Pay attention to the words you play and pay attention to the words you say. Consider what they add to the board of your relationships, your workplace, your family, even the conversations you have with yourself. Are your words creating connection? Are they offering encouragement? Are they pointing to truth? Or are they scattering? Are they tearing down? Are they wasting opportunities? Every word has value. The question is, how will you spend it? Words are small, but they are never insignificant. Let's choose them in a way that leaves others stronger, wiser, and more hopeful than they were before we spoke. As you go through this week, remember, in Scrabble, the right word can win the game. And in life, the right word can change a life. And with that, friends, we are wrapping up this games series, and we're wrapping up season 5 of Q on Q. What a journey it has been for the 20 plus episodes this season. Thank you for your support. Thank you for listening. Thank you for allowing these topics to be a part of your life, whether it's just been this season over the past year or for all of the years we've been doing this. If you've been impacted by this podcast, I encourage you to share it with others. We are stronger together, and we are so encouraged when we see that listener count climb. So whether you're in Pennsylvania, somewhere else in the U.S., or halfway around the world, Q on Q is here for you. And now we're going to be taking a break just for a few weeks as school gets started, but we will be back soon in early to mid-September with season 6. We'll be gearing up for what I can't believe I'm even saying this, for our 100th episode in just a few more episodes. I can't wait to share the start of this new season with you. I've got a lot of great things that I've been downloading to speak on, and I can't wait to share the milestone of that 100th episode with you. But for now, may your words be full of meaning, and may they make the kind of difference that lasts. That's all for this week's Q on Q. As always, I really do appreciate you tuning in this week. We'll see you back here next time when we'll have more for you on Q.